You're live now.
Do I start or do we wait for...
You're live.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Window to Revelation, a weekly series hosted by 14. My name is Zainab Nakvi and I'll be hosting today. Today in our episode, we'll be exploring the life of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and this will be delivered by our religious guide, Sister Narjis Ali. Before we begin, I'd like to invite Sheher Banu Nakvi, who will do a short Quran recitation for us. To welcome her, can I please have a loud salawat? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa jafar.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the way today will be working is we will have a short speech by Sister Narjis Ali on the topic of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam within this hour. We'll be starting with me telling you a bit about Sister Narjis Ali, our religious guide, and then I'll be asking her a few questions, personal questions, so that we can get to know her a bit better. After which she will begin telling us about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. In the middle, we'll stop for a little bit for the opportunity to ask any questions, and at the end, we'll leave about 5 to 7 minutes for any questions that you may have. During the lecture, if I may request, can please your cameras and mics be switched off so that it does not cause disturbance. And if you do have any questions, you can leave them down below in the chat option and then I can pick them up. So before we begin talking to Sister Narjis, I just thought I'd let you know a little bit about her. Sister Narjis Ali was born in Qum, Iran, after which she moved to Pakistan to complete her education until her A-levels. At the age of 16, she then left for Mashhad, Iran for 5 years to complete her Hausa studies. After that, she pursued her master's at the Islamic College in London under Middlesex University. She also has experience teaching in Hausa, and she now lectures and has been the religious guide for 14 since 2011, and she comes up with lots of creative activities such as this project with us. She's also a mother to 2 beautiful children, Zahra and Zain. So she also has her family life, which she works on alongside her religious duties and being able to help and educate us today. So I'm not sure, can Sister Narjis hear us?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I apologize for the delay. There was a technical issue.
How are you, Sister Narjis?
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Zainab?
I'm good. It's very nice to see you.
Same.
I've just given a little bit about your life for our viewers so that they could get to know a bit about your credentials. But I just thought today what we'd do, because last week they heard about you as well, and you're obviously known in the community. I thought we'd do a little personal question and answer session so that we can get to know a bit more about your personality for any young viewers.
Sorry, Zainab, I can't really make what you're saying.
Okay, I'll repeat. It's
Sorry.
fine. You hear me now?
Yes.
So I just said that I've spoken to the viewers about your short biography, you could say, so that they know about what you've done and what work you continue to do. But this week, I thought we'd change things up a bit and I could ask some personal questions, not too personal questions, but just a few questions so that everybody could get to know about you a bit personally. And for our young viewers, they could get to know that religious scholars do also have personalities and they're also fun people. They don't just read books.
Right.
So I'm just going to ask you a question. So do you like traveling?
Yes, I do. I love traveling.
So currently,
I haven't traveled much, but Yeah, I have a long bucket list though. Yeah.
So with COVID at the moment, you probably can't travel, but when
Yeah.
airlines do open and it's safe, where's the first place that you'd like to travel to?
I'd probably like to travel to Turkey. Yeah, because it's of its rich heritage, landscape. I've always wanted to go and see Turkey, even more so with after watching Dirilis Ortaokul.
Yeah,
So yeah,
my friends
so
have gone crazy about that.
yeah, top of the list, yes, Turkey. I would like to go and see Vatican City.
Yes.
One of the top destinations in my list. Probably I would like to, travel the globe if it were possible. But if I was to pick and choose, after these I would probably go to northern areas of Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually originally I am from northern areas, but it's been probably 20 years since I actually visited last. So I would love to go backpacking in northern areas.
Yeah, it would be nice. Another question, do you like cooking?
No, I cook out of necessity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which is the thing? Okay, everything you cook out of necessity, but what is one thing you're like, okay, I don't mind cooking. I'll cook it. I'll just have a little bit of satisfaction cooking it.
I think I would like to learn baking. I'm not very confident at baking, but I think that is something I would like to start and become more confident in. And in general, if there's something new and it's, I've tasted it somewhere, I do sometimes like to try and see if I can, make it. But I can't say it's my passion.
I quite like baking too. I like, creating cakes and making them look nice. That's what I like.
Lovely.
And then last question before we begin the session, because I want everything to run on time.
Sure.
You've obviously, had quite a lot of experiences. You've met lots of people in all your, so far in your life. You've probably read a lot and you've studied a lot. But if there was one piece of advice you could give our viewers, and more specifically our young viewers, in this time of difficulty in the whole world, what would you give?
All right, that's such a difficult question, Zainab. You should have sent me this question beforehand.
I wanted to catch you off guard. That's why.
Okay. What would I say to young people? I think I would say that before anything else, before you thinking about academics, which university you want to go, what you want to do, think about mental health. You can do anything if you have the right mindset. If you've come in terms with the life you have, if you're satisfied with the life you have, with what you have around you, with the person you are, your abilities, potential you have, these things. I think it's basically focusing on mental health is a journey to explore your inner self. We all have, I think we shouldn't be ashamed to say that everyone has one aspect of their personality which needs healing a little bit. And I think it's very important to focus on that, especially during this pandemic. Well, one of the bright sides of this whole COVID-19 thing is that we all have a little bit more time to ourselves, and we can think, reflect, and if need be, seek help and focus on our inner selves more.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think mental health is a big thing, and usually in our communities we don't speak a lot about it, but it is also
it's taboo, probably.
Yeah. So maybe that's something on another date we could explore further with you.
Definitely.
I'd now like to hand it over to you so you could educate us a bit more about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and then I'll stop in the middle a little bit so we could ask if the viewers have any questions, and then at the end we'll have our regular Q&A session on the topic. Is that okay?
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Zainab.
No worries.
Okay, so, all right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين. So today our focus prophet is Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And as you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called this story Ahsanul Qisas, best of stories in the Holy Quran, where he says that نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. Now, why does Allah says that this is the best story? There are so many other references to other prophets and their lives in the Holy Quran. And it's important to bear in mind that Quran is not a book of stories. It's primarily a book of guidance. And whatever is necessary for us to know with regards to our guidance and our life in this world and hereafter, it mentions those bits and leaves the other unnecessary bits out. So if it speaks about heavens and earth and sun and moon and all the outer space, astronomy, it's the focus is not on physics or astronomy. It just mentions sometimes signs for us to ponder upon. Similarly, it doesn't aim to tell us a whole story. So this is the only story, Surah Yusuf is the only story that Allah mentions in so much detail, in a way, in proper storytelling way, and also calls it the best of stories. Why does it call this story best of stories? I think I'll leave the answer for later and let our viewers think about it as we go forward. Well, it could be the whole scenario of his brothers getting jealous. It could be anything else, but let's move forward and see what it could be. So the Quran begins the story from the night. It's absolutely amazing how Allah has, what is it called? The opening scene is where Yusuf has this dream, and he wakes up and shares his dream with his father and says, I saw a dream and I saw 11 stars and sun and moon, and I saw that they were bowing and prostrating to me. And Yaqub then says, don't tell this story, don't tell this dream to your brothers, because I fear that Shaitan might make them go astray, unless they might plot against you. And وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And here Prophet Yaqub is making a prophecy. He says, Allah will choose you and then Allah will teach you. In this, he does not interpret the whole dream at this point. He says, Allah will choose you and He will teach you the science of the knowledge of dreams, the interpretation of dreams, and then you will understand what this means. Now we know that Yusuf had 10 other brothers, 11 actually, but one of them, Binyamin, was from the same mother, and 10 others were from another wife that Prophet Yaqub had. And Yusuf had a special personality. Not only was he very beautiful, but he had these qualities, these amazing traits that made him lovable to everyone. Everyone who would meet him, they would they would immediately fall in love with him. So he was naturally the center of attention. And because of that, his brothers envied him. Now, when Yusuf narrates this dream, relates this dream to his father, somehow one of the brothers overhears the dream, and he goes and he tells his brothers. Now, this was the trigger for the brothers. When they heard the dream, they got the gist of the meaning, that this brother of ours is going to rule over us, and that was hard for them to accept. So we all know what happened. They begged their father one day and said, please send Yusuf so he can play around and be happy in the desert with us. We look after him. And Prophet Yaqub was reluctant at this point, but he had to give in, and they took Yusuf. Now, when initially they decided to kill him, but one of the brothers did not let others do it and said, we can drop him into a well, and probably someone will find him. It was common for travelers, if they saw a well, they would take water from it. And that happened, and they took the shirt off of Prophet Yusuf and soaked it in blood and took it back to Prophet Yaqub. Now, this shirt of Yusuf in this story is very symbolic as well, very important in a way. They took this shirt, and Prophet Yaqub said a very interesting thing here. He said, what a clever wolf it was. They went and said the wolf ate Yusuf. And he said, what a clever wolf it was, that the wolf ate Yusuf without ripping his clothes. Now, this also shows the psychology of a person who lies. When someone lies a lot, naturally they start forgetting things. And also, another beautiful point that we can derive from this is just how compassionate Prophet Yaqub was. I mean, he knew that his sons have committed a horrific crime. Either they've killed Yusuf, or they've given him away, they've thrown him in the well. They've done something to his beloved son. And we see him being extremely patient, beyond the ability of a human being. And he's being extremely patient. He's saying, although he knows, he's figured that out, but he says, I will be patient. But he's in pain, and he cries and cries for years and years. And on the other hand, now there are many narrations with regards to Yusuf, what happened to him in the well, what the brothers said to him. But the thing is, the story of Prophet Yusuf particularly is very vulnerable to forgery. Most of the narrations that we find telling us the details of this story are part of a chapter called Israeliyat. What is Israeliyat? Well, in the beginning of Islam, the group of non-Muslims which Muslims had the most interaction with were the Jews near Medina, and other people, Jews and Christians, who later, some of them converted, and some did not convert but pretended. I mean, yeah, they pretended to convert, and their purpose was to bring things and deviations from their own religions to the religion of Islam. So they could not change the words of Quran. So what they did was they changed the interpretation of Quran. So they kept forging new hadiths and bringing it in, or they took bits from Old Testament that they had deviated and changed Old Testament, and then they brought those narrations into Islam. So they actually forged people. And we have some narrators, particularly one called Abdullah ibn Sabah, and there's a whole chapter of hadith literature narrated by Abdullah ibn Sabah, whereas recent historians, when they researched, what they found out, and there's a whole book about, with the name of Abdullah ibn Sabah by Allama Askari, if I'm not wrong, that such a person, he proves in that book that such a person never existed in history. And it's said that Abdullah ibn Sabah was one of the leaders of Jewish tribes or communities, and he converted and he became one of the trustworthy narrators. And there are a whole chapter of narrations by Abdullah ibn Sabah where that person never existed. So this kind of hadith is called Israeliyat. So this story of Prophet Yusuf is susceptible to this kind of hadith. So we have to be very careful about what we take with regards to the details. So in those narrations, we even have the names of the stars that the Prophet Yusuf saw, the 11 stars that he saw in the dream. But it doesn't go hand in hand with reason as well. He saw a picture, according to Quran. He says, I saw with my eyes that these stars did this. There was no reason for him to see the names, and there are no authentic narrations. In any case, now this person, there was a caravan passing by that well, and they stopped at the well, and they were trying to get water out of it, and Yusuf attached himself to the pail, and he was brought out. Now the brothers were watching, and when Yusuf was brought out, they came forward and they claimed that he was their slave. They said, he's our slave, so you will have to pay us if you want to buy him. In some of those narrations that we cannot rely on, there is a price as well for Yusuf, but we do not have anything reliable from the Ahlul Bayt. They bought him and took him to Egypt. Now Yusuf had a unique disposition, and everyone in the caravan by the end of that journey had fallen in love with Yusuf. And it is in narrations that even the person who eventually sold him in the slave market was later regretted what he did, because he had seen such akhlaq, such beauty in Yusuf's mannerism that he could not part with him. Now in the slave market, the deputy of the pharaoh of the time bought him. And now Quran quotes the Aziz who actually bought him, and the Quran says that he actually, when he took Yusuf, because of just by looking at Yusuf, the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, he understood that this is not an ordinary child. So he told his wife that I bought this slave from slave market, but let's not make him a slave. He said, he can probably be our son. I mean, he could see that kind of, he could not help but respect Yusuf in that manner. Now we can see that how one of the reasons probably why this is Ahsan al-Qisas, when like Allah says, when they plan, we plan. When they plan, Allah plans. They plan to bring Yusuf down, and belittle him, turn him into a slave, and Allah took him from that place, and he sent him into the house of Aziz, and now here he is respected and trained. He's been taught all the skills that a royalty ought to know. He's being taught how to probably fight, how to calculate, how to, whatever the sciences were at that time, whatever the best of everything that was available at that time, that it was given to Yusuf. Whereas before in Canaan, he was living probably in a tent or something. It was a very basic life that he was living. Now he's in the heart of civilization of the time, and he's being taught by the best in that field. Especially later on, we read in Quran that when he's speaking to the Pharaoh, to the king, he says this sentence is to the Pharaoh. He says that make me your minister, or make in charge of your economy, of your treasury, because I am capable of doing that. I am good at, let's say I have a degree in economics. That shows that he's probably learned all kind of skills that were considered to be necessary to take up a post, a very important government position like that. Well, on the other hand, he is a prophet. He obviously is given divine knowledge to deal with all kind of issues, but he would definitely also need to show the king some kind of skills that he's learned, because at that point the king does not believe in prophethood of Yusuf, so he has to show him something. He can't say, because I'm prophet I know. So probably he's being taught all kind of skills, and he's very much respected in that mansion, in that palace that he lives in, until as Quran narrates, Yusuf now has grown into a beautiful, handsome young man. According to some narrations, at that point he was 12, but also we do have evidence that in some individuals, growth, physical and intellectual development happened quicker than other people. In any case, the wife of Aziz, then we cannot say fall in love. I do not like to use this for the case of Zulaykha, because there's a difference between, and this story actually aims to teach us the difference between love and lust. What is love and what is love? Especially these days, and I won't even say West, because it's global now. People tend to mix these things together, especially in early years of during the teenage and adolescence. They tend to mix the two things together. Whenever you feel attracted, doesn't mean you feel the love. So the divine love, the godly love is one thing, and lust is another. So what Zulaykha experienced here was pure lust, and she actually closed the doors and invited Yusuf to commit a sin. And Yusuf then, what Yusuf says here is beautiful. He, number one, the lesson that we learn here, he did not think that I am immune to all kinds of sins, even though I am the son of a prophet. I am a prophet myself, but even for 1 second, he did not say, oh, this is beyond, this is something, this is below me. I'm above all this kind of behavior or sins. But rather, he turns to Allah. He actually says that if it was not for the mercy of my Lord, I would fall. So sometimes we become overconfident. We think, oh, I won, I know everyone is doing this, but I'll be fine. But Yusuf did not say, I'll be fine. He said, only if the only thing that can save me is his mercy. And even when he refused, he said, Ma'adallah, I seek refuge from Allah. He is the only one who can protect me. And then he says, Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwai. He is my Lord and he's done good to me. This is the attitude we need to have with regards to obedience to Allah and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Why do we need to do good? These reward charts. Personally, I do not feel comfortable with reward charts that we draw for kids as well. Every time you brush your teeth, you get a star or some kind of reward. Every time you be kind, you get this. We are not teaching them to be good for the sake of good. We are teaching them to be good for the sake of a treat. Yusuf says here, what does Yusuf say? He says, Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwai. I cannot commit a sin. My Lord, he brought me up so well. He's been good to me. I cannot repay his goodness with disobedience. How can I disobey when he's been so good? Similar with regards to the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt are the reason that we have anything in our life, the accomplishment, whatever we have is because of them. So with regards to Ahlul Bayt, this is the attitude we need to have. So moving forward, the Aziz then found them and accused Yusuf. One of the people, one of the maids of Aziz's wife then comes up with this idea. She says, because Zulaykha, when they were running towards the door, Zulaykha held on to Yusuf's shirt, and the shirt then got ripped. So if the shirt is ripped from the front, then Yusuf is the sinful one. If it's ripped from behind, it's Zulaykha, and they saw that it was ripped from behind. So what happened then was, it was obvious to Aziz that this is the doing of his wife and not Yusuf. But because there were, people were talking, they were losing the respect that they had, Aziz and his wife. The wife came up with an idea and she said, why don't we throw him in the dungeon? And that will give people the impression that whoever, the wrongdoer got what he deserved, and everyone will stop talking. So this is the difference between love and lust. So if you love someone purely, and it is a godly love, if it's pure, you sacrifice yourself. You sacrifice yourself in the sense that you want that, you want yourself for the sake of that person. We have the concept of fana fillah. Yourself and your possessions then mean nothing to you when it comes to the beloved, like what we saw in the plains of Karbala. You give everything. And when Imam Hussein salam had Ali Asghar, his youngest son, in his hands, and he said, everything that Hussein is going through becomes easy because you are watching. He was ready to give everything. Just why? For one glance of the beloved. This is pure love. Whereas lust, you want it for yourself. You want that person the moment, whatever it is, for yourself. And if he or she doesn't comply, then what happened? Zulaykha threw Yusuf, who she claimed to love, into dungeon. In one of the narrations, it's very interesting and also very important for us to remember when we ask for something and we raise our hands in front of Allah. He said Yusuf ended up in dungeon, in prison, because when this happened, when he was accused of betraying Aziz, he said, Ya Allah, dungeon is preferable to me. Dungeon is better for me than what I'm going through right now. Dungeon is better than the accusations I'm facing. So Allah sent him to dungeon. And then this is, well, I think from Imam Riza alayhi salam, and he says, if Yusuf had said that, if he hadn't said dungeon is better, if he had said afiyat is better for me, meaning Allah could have made all of that go away. Allah could have cleared his name without him being thrown into dungeon. So Yusuf asked specifically for dungeon, when he could have said, Ya oh Allah, clear my name, prove my innocence. So we have to remember when we are asking from Allah, we shouldn't be stingy, because we might not be able to think, but Allah can do anything, right? He has no limitations. He doesn't run out of things to give to us. So why be stingy? Ask for the best. So Yusuf was thrown into dungeon, but this going to dungeon actually becomes a blessing in disguise. He starts teaching the knowledge of Allah and about oneness and Tawheed to the inmates of prison and dungeon. And it is said that he turned prison into a place of worship. And he prayed for the people. When he was leaving the dungeon, he prayed for those people and said, oh Allah, don't make them miss out on what's happening in their lands. And it is said that those people then would become aware of whatever is happening in their families, in their cities, even before the people of the city itself. Anyway, now when he was in dungeon, there he meets two people. This is the prophecy now coming true. He meets two people who have a dream on the same night. Up until that day, Yusuf probably hasn't realized that he has this knowledge. He's being given this knowledge. They had dreams. One of them sees that he's serving drinks to the king, and the other sees that he has a pail of bread on his head and the birds are eating from it. And Yusuf then interprets both of their dreams. The first one, he tells that you are going to be released soon and you will become the royal, whatever the title is called in Arabic, is called saqi. So you'll present drinks to everyone, to the royalty. And the second one, Yusuf told him that you are going to be hanged, and the vultures will eat from you. And both of them became believers at the hands of Yusuf. And Yusuf asked the first one that when you go and meet, when this dream comes true and you go and meet the king, remind him, remember me in front of him. I mean, tell him about me. You've seen me, you know, you can testify about my innocence, and tell him what kind of a person I am, and I am innocent. So remember me. Now, what happened that Yusuf was given this knowledge? The scholars here and exegetes have said that a certain kind of practices, a certain kind of hardships help you acquire certain kind of qualities and gifts, divine gifts. And what Yusuf went through with Zulaykha and his self-restraint and his taqwa helped him. I mean, that was a divine reward for him, this knowledge. And this has happened to other people in history, like one of the mu'abbirin, or people who interpret dreams. They tell their stories that one night something similar to what happened to Yusuf happened to him, until he could not find any way out except that he went and he rubbed some dirty stuff on his face and everywhere in order for him to escape from that person, from that woman. And he realized that after that incident, he felt that he has a certain knowledge, and he was given the knowledge of dreams. So sometimes certain things are given when your soul goes through certain hardships. So that's what happened to Yusuf. And now Yusuf is in dungeon, and according to narrations, he stayed there for 18 years. When this person finally was released, the person who saw the dream, he was released, he went to the king, but he forgot about Yusuf until one day the king saw a dream that 7 fat cows are eating 7 thin cows, and also 7 wheat grains which are healthy and well-nourished, and 7 wheat grains which are not very, undernourished, basically. And he asked the people of temple to interpret the dream, which they cannot. And then Yusuf, the person who serves drinks, is listening to all of this, and he suddenly remembers about Yusuf, and Yusuf is then brought out of the prison. No, actually, when he wasn't brought out of prison, someone goes to the prison and tells Yusuf that the king is asking for you, and he's had such a dream. He wants you to interpret the dream. Yusuf then says that I will not come out of the prison until the king goes to the wife of Aziz and those women who accused me of betraying the Aziz, and ask them what really happened. And until my name is cleared, I will not come out of this dungeon. Now 18 years have passed. Then the king then summons Aziz and his wife and the other ladies who, according to Quran, cut their own hands when they saw Yusuf, and they were so mesmerized with his beauty. So they all testify of Yusuf's innocence. Now, this actually impressed the king, that someone can be so faithful, that he prefers to stay in prison for 18 years than to betray his master. And also he has such self-respect that he would not, probably if he had admitted or said whatever Zulaykha wanted him to say, he would be able to get out of dungeon, but he did not do that. And his strength of character impressed the king. Now Yusuf is taken out, he interprets the dream, and he says that for 7 years, there will be, the harvest will be good, and tell your people to save as much as they can and store during those 7 years. Then there will be 7 years of famine. When Yusuf is brought out, the king then asks him to join his become a part of the government, and Yusuf that then chooses the treasury. He says, let me manage the lands and let me get this country out of famine successfully. So now the way Yusuf manages the country is amazing. People were in doubt first, but when they see how he manages in the first 7 years, he manages to feed everyone and still save enough to store in silos. And for 7 years of famine, then Egypt had enough for their own people. And not only that, but people from other lands would come and they would buy wheat or whatever the necessities were from the government of Egypt. Now, during this time of famine, Canaan is under famine too, where his father is and his brothers are. And Yaqub, until this day, he hasn't forgotten his son, and he cries so much that people have become sick of it. Now they tell him to forget about Yusuf, and they blame him. They say that it's been so long and you're still remembering Yusuf. And he keeps saying that I know something that you do not know. There's something I know that you do not know. Now, this is another beautiful aspect of this story, how a prophet, in the amazing character of Yusuf, has made a prophet of Allah to fall in love with this child, who then becomes a prophet himself, and he cries so much until he turns blind. Now, the sons of Yaqub were sent by Yaqub, Prophet Yaqub, to appeal to the government of Egypt for necessities, for food, and they are naturally, because they are the sons of the Prophet and the leaders of the tribe. So they, except for Binyamin, who Yaqub would not let out of his sight, the 10 brothers traveled to Egypt. And when Prophet Yusuf sees them, he immediately recognizes them. And the Quran says that he knows them, but they do not know him. Also, it's metaphorical that they did not have that kind of insight and ma'rifah to see Yusuf for what he was. All they could see in him was a child who was closer to their father than them. In any case, so Yusuf recognizes them, and all the memories are now coming back. Obviously, all these years, Yusuf has not forgotten about his father, who's also his prophet. So now he fills the barrels with wheat and with all the necessities. But also what he does is, before they leave, he commands one of his people to refill the containers or boxes of money that they brought with themselves. So basically, he gives their money back and asks them about their, if they have another brother, and they say yes, there's a brother, and our father does not like to let him get out of his sight. So Yusuf then tells them that if you have to bring your brother next time, and if you do not, I can't give you any more supplies. So when they get back to their lands, they put the matter in front of their father, and their father is now very upset with the situation, but they had no choice, and this time they take their brother as well. And when Yusuf sees his brother, he takes him aside and tells him that I am your brother and I have a plan. So if something happens to you, do not worry. There's a plan to fix it, as we say. And when they're leaving Egypt, one of the guards of the palace stops them and says, there's a thief between you. One of the very valuable plates from the palace has been stolen. And they beg him to let them go. We are not thieves, we're respectable people. We came here to ask for supplies and that's what we got. He said, no problem. If you're not thieves, let me search you. Let me search your belongings. And if we find the plate, if you don't find the plate, well and good, you can go, but let us check. So when they check, they find that valuable plate in the belongings of Binyamin, the brother of Yusuf. Now, all the brothers naturally shout at him and yell at him. And then the God asked, what's the punishment of a thief in your lands? And they say, obviously, Yusuf knows this already. And they say that the punishment of a thief in our lands is that person, the thief, becomes the slave for that person, for the owner of the property, and serves him for this period of time. Now the brothers are extremely upset because they had promised their father to look after Binyamin, especially because of what's happened before. One of the brothers stays behind. He says, I cannot go and face my father again. And the rest of the brothers then go back. And then
I'm not sure what quite happened there. Sister Nargis, I think you might be muted. Can you hear us? I think her mic might be muted, Sister Nargis.
I can't seem to unmute her mic.
Yeah, I think she's muted her
She
mic.
has to do it.
Right, she is trying to fix it. She needs to unmute her mic. Apologies for this. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat bar, where when we do get back with her, I think we will go to the Q&A. I think she has rejoined, so we're just going to wait for her. Hello?
hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I think I was holding in a way that I hit leave button or something.
Okay.
Sorry.
So if you'd like to wrap up your point, and then we'll move to the Q&A before we finish the session, if that's okay with you.
Sure. So now we all know what happened. Yaqub was then very upset, and he sent his sons to go and beg the Aziz. Yusuf has become Aziz now, at the same position where the person who adopted him or bought him was. he sent his sons to beg him. And when the sons come back and they beg him, at that point, Yusuf then reveals himself. The brothers, obviously, they've by this time they've realized what they've done. Yusuf forgives them, and then he gives them a shirt. Now it's beautiful how Allah has planned the whole story to happen. I mean, the life of Yusuf. It was the shirt of Yusuf that brought grief and tears to Yaqub's heart, Yaqub alayhi salam, and it was again his shirt that brought his eyesight back and brought him comfort. And he actually said, before even the caravan would come closer to Canaan, that I can smell my son Yusuf. And people probably laughed at him. And he said, no, I know that news from Yusuf is coming. Now he takes this shirt and he puts it on his eyes, and he becomes, he can see again. Now he's brought to Egypt and given respect. And at this point, they all bow down before Yusuf, and the dream has then come true. They say that when Yusuf passed away, the people of Egypt loved and respected Yusuf so much that when there were different cities, different tribes, probably everyone wanted to have Yusuf buried in their land, so they can benefit from the blessings and barakah of his sacred body. And the disagreement became a big issue until it was decided that Yusuf should be buried in the river Nile, because the water from river Nile goes through all the cities and everyone benefits from that water. They thought, now if we bury him in Nile, they made a coffin of what is it called? Marble, yeah, a coffin of marble, and buried him in that and in the river Nile, so they could all benefit from his sacred, the blessings of his body. And that's how he was buried until the time of Prophet Musa, when there was a famine again in Palestine, and there was no rain for a long time, and Allah commanded Musa to bring the body of Prophet Yusuf out and take him to Palestine. And Musa then asks around because he didn't know where he's buried. An old woman that then came forward, and she says that if I want 3 things in return for this information. She was clever. She knew exactly what to ask for, and she said, because she was old and blind, she said, I want my health and youth back. I want to be able to see again, and I also want to be next to you, O Prophet Musa, in the hereafter. So Allah commanded Musa he said, I've granted her wishes, I accepted her prayers, tell her that it's been accepted. And she gave the information, and then Yusuf is taken out, and he was then buried in Palestine, and in currently occupied Palestine. Inshallah, we'll all be able to go there and visit the holy shrines of Prophet Yusuf very soon. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. I can't hear you, sister.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I had unmuted myself. So I thought I'd start off the Q&A session, and if you guys or the viewers have any questions, please do put them in the chat box. We do have limited time, but if there are any questions, I'm sure Sister Narjis would be happy to answer them. So I thought I'd start off. You talked about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and I just wanted to know, how old was Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam by the time that he died?
So he was 12 years old when in 18, that's 30, and he ruled for 80 years. So all in all, it becomes, I think, 110 or something. Yeah.
Also, you know, we often hear that parents, they treat their children equally. And in this story, we know that Prophet Yusuf had 11 brothers. But I wanted to know is why did they feel that Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam had a preference towards Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam? Why did they have that jealousy towards him?
The brothers, naturally, they were not infallibles. Prophet Yusuf had this kind of akhlaq, the character and mannerism that people immediately liked him. Sometimes it can't be helped. It wasn't the case that Prophet Yaqub treated them differently, but there were certain things that Prophet Yaqub could not share with his other sons, because Yusuf had that divine knowledge. He was one of the chosen ones. And also in some scholars and exegetes actually say that the reason why Yaqub was so in love with Yusuf and why he cried so much, despite being a prophet, obviously he had a patience level much higher than ordinary people, was because Yusuf had wilaya on Yaqub. He had a higher status than Yaqub, and also Quran gives him the titles of Mukhlasin, Siddiqeen. The highest titles that you find in Quran are given to very handful of prophets, and Yusuf is one of them. So it was Yaqub's love for the wali of his time, not just a son. So there were secrets between Yusuf and Yaqub. When it comes to fatherhood, there was no difference. And we can see just how compassionate he was with his other sons when even they came and lied to him, and he did not punish them. He actually just hung his head and said, I will be patient, and a beautiful patience it will be.
Yes. And what does the name Yusuf mean?
Yusuf, actually, he was named by his mother, and it means that he will grow, or it will. This will continue, something like that. It's actually a verb, and that was because she believed that Allah will bless her with another son. This is what we read in narrations.
I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for such a fruitful session on Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. I know there were some technical difficulties on our part. I
apologize for that as well.
Yes, but these things happen, and we're getting used to this with the current climate. But just to remind our viewers, this is Window to Revelation is a 6-part series that happens weekly with Sister Narjis Ali every Friday. So inshallah, we'll be back next week on Friday at 7:30 p.m. sharp, and we will be looking at the life of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for blessing us with your knowledge.
Thank you very much, Zainab. You're amazing.
Thank you. And may your knowledge continue to help 14 and help us grow. So assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah, Allah and Ahlul Bayt may bless you. Inshallah, you're an inspiration to our youth.